certainly enjoy the modeling. But what am I doing with that? Even though it brings me such joy, well, why didn't you pursue it?
Welcome back to M's Adventures and Stories. This is another chat with my friend Jason, the nude art model. I wasn't sure if I was going to actually post this chat that I had with him because this one is about a midlife crisis and what to do with yourself. But really, we had some good laughs and we got talking about literature and goals in life and aspirational living and what to do if you're just a normal person and how you can still have a life that's great. Here we are again. All right, bread and butter.
Excellent, thank you.
Here we are this time eating steak at medium rare, which is a set price menu, or in fancy French you can say, how do you say it?
That's actually, I was kind of hoping
you
knew it.
I haven't done French in many, many years.
Yeah,
anyway, a prix fixe or something, a fille pie, I don't know. So I can smell the bread is sourdough. And we're once again with Jason, but this time he's going to tell me a completely different story. Something else that has nothing to do with being a nude male art model. And and we'll see how that goes. Entertaining. But yeah, this I didn't realize this, because this is a chain, medium rare.
Yeah, they have
and they're all over the place, and I didn't realize that it's you can't choose your menu. It's just, you're eating steak. Mm-hmm. I will say their bread is incredibly sour, because it's very light and airy.
Yeah, you were able to pick up on the fact that it was sourdough.
Right, I can smell it. Down. Mm. Yeah, and then I don't have a butter knife. I only have a steak knife.
As do I.
What kind of heathens are we?
Yes. Well, yeah, right. My French is lay crappy. I took
lay crappy.
I took 1 year of French at my 2-year college. Mm. I've never had an aptitude for foreign languages to begin with. French was no exception. So I had Latin in high school and some college.
Latin, that's terrible.
Yeah, but no.
This is a little bit of mukbang. Have you heard of mukbang?
I've heard of it, but I can't tell you what it is.
Yeah. So, or ASMR, but mukbang is this Korean term for, it's this industry where people pay other people to eat. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. And usually it's these good-looking, tiny, tiny little women that weigh as much as like a fly. And the Koreans, because they got lonely, so they would pay these women. All right.
Thank you.
Any fresh pepper for anyone?
Not for me.
No, thank you.
That is the world's coldest plate. Do you have like a little butter knife?
I don't have butter knives, just steak knives in the house.
Wow, all right. Thanks. Oh, salads have been in the fridge.
Ooh, that is a cold plate.
Yeah, it's like,
on a day like today where it's all freezing out.
I could do with some French onion soup today.
I'm going to give you an extra knife there just in case.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, French onion soup would be good on a day like this.
Wow. A little sour, the salad dressing.
I like it.
Yeah. It'll be good when the contrast between this and French fries.
Yes.
A mukbang, so it started out, I think, as just people would post themselves eating, and then people would start paying, sometimes real money, but sometimes that, like, cryptocurrency, right? And I think most of the people who were successful were women, mm-hmm. and they would eat insane, like, gross amounts of food.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know if they went in and threw it up.
Oh, my God.
But they didn't do it on camera. They would just slurp away, eat enough food for maybe 14, 15 people, and I am not kidding.
That sounds like they just were on like a desert island for years.
It was the most pornographic, it was just a huge plate of food. Usually they'd look all pretty, and there would be this little tiny, the whole the slurping and that whole thing. And I think there was one guy who was successful at it, but he may have given up because it was just he had to exercise so much to not get really, really fat. And I think it still goes on. Anyway. Yeah, so that's mukbang. But then there's ASMR, which you've heard of, right? It's that.
Oh, it's delicious. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. My name is Marcus. I'm the manager on duty. If y'all need anything, I'm around. I can certainly.
All right. No, thank you very much.
You want a beverage other than water?
No, I got my water without ice. That's what I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've heard of ASMR, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I can't remember what it stands for. But it's the very close up. The sounds of, sometimes I'll fall upon a channel where they're wrapping something, or is there someone stitching something?
Oh, wow.
And the microphone is way down next to the sound of them.
I usually experienced a lot if you watch like chiropractic videos. You know, people getting their spine adjusted, sometimes massage and things like that, where you can hear like the actual skin on skin.
You might need more butter. I do like their butter.
It's good.
And so, this is not all you can eat, right? This is like...
Actually, I think they will. I'm almost positive it is all you can eat, because I thought I saw in a review they'd bring you out like a second helping of steak if you wanted it. You can always ask them when it comes back.
Because it's...
And I'm sure they'd give you more bread if you wanted it. I mean, it's good bread. I just don't want to fill up on it.
It's not very expensive. It's $28?
Yeah, for everything.
Yeah.
And does that include
Well, then
dessert?
we're adding a $9 mushroom.
Does that include dessert too, or just the... I didn't seem to get the impression.
I don't think so. These are things in the box. The bread,
Right.
the salad, the fries, the meat. Which is not filet, it's a culotte or a picanha.
Yeah, I think culotte is what they called it, which I don't know if I've ever had that kind of steak before.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I'm not very good at the cuts of meat because usually I'm just a filet person. I like filet mignon. I like it tender.
Yeah, I like either a ribeye or a New York strip.
Yep.
So, because I know you emailed me and said, hey, don't tell me what
Don't tell me
you're
what
gonna
your
talk
story's
about.
going to be.
So, nothing terribly crazy. It builds off a little bit about what we talked about the past couple of podcasts. More like, I've just been taking assessment on myself, where I've been in life, where I'm going, where I want to be. And I want to say, where do I go from here? And I'm not necessarily talking about art modeling, specifically, though it is a part of it, as we did talk about getting back into the thick of things after being, on hiatus for a couple of years due to COVID and still not being terribly active. But also thinking about, there's other interests. I've acted before. I'd love to do more creative writing. As you know, I was on Yelp. We were both on Yelp.
Yeah.
I do have a blog. But the fact there's these creative outlets I used to have, and I feel that they've all been lying dormant quite some time. And the thing is, I live by myself, so it's not like I have a whole lot of competing interests for my time. I'm not taking care of, I don't have kids, I don't have a spouse, I'm not taking care of a loved one or anything like that. So it's just trying to get over that, okay, you've got more opportunity and more unobligated time than a lot of other people out there, especially someone my age. Why am I not doing anything with it? Why do I always get to the gee, I'd like to stage and never really do anything with it?
Okay.
And just taking stock of my life as I turned 50, I don't know where this came from. The actual thought, you would initially pitch it as, hey, don't just think of something, don't tell me about it, just think of something. And I was really struggling, and it wasn't really until, I guess, after my mother left, over the Thanksgiving holidays, that it just dawned on me, and I don't know what the catalyst was, but I thought, I'm almost 50 years old, and maybe I was thinking about what Thanksgiving was like growing up with my parents when I was a child, and I just realized, was this how my life, if you were to ask like the 8-year-old me, the 13-year-old me, even the 21-year-old me, either back then where I thought I would be now, or even could I have even predicted the twists and turns my life took me to where I am.
Okay.
But, you think about it, most people out there around here our age are married or in a relationship. or at least a lot of the ones that I work with. So
I know a lot of people who aren't.
For me, it's just like,
I'm going to eat this.
by all means.
I'm going to eat the
Well,
bread.
yeah, well, yeah, too, because
can
there were
get
4
more.
pieces of bread, so you get...
Oh, yeah?
And I already had 2, so that's
Oh,
yours.
and then I'm going to eat the rest of the butter.
It's good bread. Yeah,
Because-
help yourself. That's good butter.
Because I'm like, I'm hungry.
But I guess what it is like, not that I mean, I think, you know, in certain cases there was a lot of inertia over the past 5 to 7 years where I kind of slacked off more than I should.
Okay.
Well,
We're enjoying
bread's
the
delicious.
bread.
So's the salad.
Salad.
Split out of the way for you?
Sure.
Good. I love the vinaigrette. Part of it was I just realized, you know, I just maybe was listless the past 5 to 7 years. And the fact that I had just had the realization, like, you know, tomorrow's never promised. There's only so much time we've all got left. You know, not even necessarily in terms of leaving like a legacy or anything like that, but just like, are you truly living up to your full potential? And I don't think I am.
Do we need any more bread?
Yeah.
Actually, please, thank you.
Sure.
All right.
You're going to make this really deep, huh? It's going to be a deep. Is this going to be a deep conversation?
You know, when I said the phrase, you know, where do I go from here? It was a... Have you ever seen the movie Vanishing Point with Barry Newman from 1971? It's a very existential road movie. The guy makes a bet that he's going to go ahead and drive a car from Denver to San Francisco in a certain amount of time, gets hopped up on methamphetamines, and it's just a very surreal movie, but it has a good early 1970s soundtrack, and one of the songs was Where Do We Go From Here? Now, the song had a different message to it, but I just, for some reason, it randomly popped in my mind. I'm like, well, where do I go from here? I think, and I don't know where all this came from in such a short period of time where I'm talking about a fairly heavy subject, whereas our previous topics were a bit more lighthearted and whimsical.
Well, we talked very seriously. I think that maybe it's a combination of the time of year, right? The end of the year.
True.
People always get thoughtful. And then midlife, which, again, is hilarious because it's not the middle.
Right.
It's not.
No.
It's way past the middle.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And for me, it's not even a crisis.
Not to make it even worse.
No. And it was funny, too, because I was thinking about the same thing about midlife crisis, only at this point I'm not in a position to even afford to be able to buy like an expensive sport car or motorcycle or one of the traditional, excellent, thank you. What are the traditional symbols, at least, of a male midlife crisis? But I just realized there are just like so many things. Like I'd look through some of my old bookmarks, and I'd have links to like, I think there's a creative, or there's like a writer's workshop in DC, and I'm struggling to think of the name of it. It's like the writers. I can't remember. It might be, but they have.
That was like calling themselves guilds.
They have a. They have different, writers types of workshops, and I thought, well, I always enjoyed my Yelp writing.
Yeah.
I'd love to write more creatively, but at least if I have a class setting where I'm paying money, I'd like to think I would be more disciplined to like, okay, hey, look, there's an assignment, it's being graded.
Are you one of those people who functions that way? I paid for it, so I will do it?
Mostly, yeah, I either paid for it, so I'm going to do it, or it's part...
Does that work with the gym?
Oh, no, it didn't work for years. The gym made plenty of money off of me over the years until I started becoming... until I started to get this yearning to be more physically fit. There would be years, I think, where I'd go like a handful of times. They definitely got their money off of me.
So it didn't work?
No. But I think it's something like, okay, you know what, you're paying it, but you have to attend class. You're being... I'm assuming there's grades or some sort of at least pass-fail. The fact that,
a lot of them work sort of like a workshop. So you're going to write something, and then at the next workshop, or the next class, you're going to... Because I did one through adult education.
Oh.
Yeah, through the county.
And, really?
Yeah, and It was nice because there were only maybe 5 or 6 of us. And it was a creative writing thing where we got together and, ooh, that bread is hot. We got together and we brought stuff that we'd already written. And then the other people would read it and critique it.
Oh. Did you...
So you get it workshopped.
So did everybody jump into the assignments, or was there sort of like, hey, these are the elements of creative
No,
fiction?
because we already brought stuff that we'd done.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I'd probably have to dig out my old Yelp reviews and probably some of my blog posts, at which point I would have to be very comfortable saying...
Yeah. But it depends on what kind of writing you want to do.
Well, and that's the thing. If I were to go into my phone right now, there would be one of about 500 tabs, which I think is the max, open in Safari, where I had that writer's workshop. Another one, there's it's acting lessons, but it's not individual acting lessons. I think it's like an actual acting school that,
Okay.
I think I'm a decent enough, we've talked about this, I've done scenario-based role plays for law enforcement de-escalation. I've done a couple of community theater plays.
Yeah.
I've always gotten really good compliments about that sort of thing. But again, it's all amateur. It's all me being creative, but without the benefit of actual lessons and to do that. The modeling thing. The fact that, okay, I've got my feet wet again. I have a couple of gigs under my belt. I'll probably have a few more coming up. But it's from one school.
What's the end goal?
That's self-actualization. You know, the fact that, and I don't want it to sound like an ego thing, but it's sort of like, again, okay, well, what are you doing with your life? You know, I've got a decent job. I can't complain about it. But that's it a lot of times. I just...
All right.
Ooh. All right.
Thanks.
Of course. Can I take anything out of the way for you guys?
Actually, yeah, I think you can take my salad, which is delicious, by the way.
All right, let me know if I can get you any ketchup, extra sauce, or anything like that, okay?
Oh, thank you very
thanks.
much.
That is the most expensive mushroom I've ever seen. It's a little fillet of. We should try it because this is a very fancy mushroom. Yep.
Is it not a chimichurri sauce?
No, I don't know what it is. Maybe.
It's good, though.
That's a vegetarian steak.
Can't go wrong with portobello.
$9 for a very thin slice. That is about 2.5 ounces.
I guess
Self-actualization.
Yes.
And doing some of this stuff at a professional level.
Yes. Or at least a pro-am level.
Would this make you feel more actualized?
Well, I think so, because it's one of those things, you know, people gave me compliments on the writing that I did, both for the blog and for Yelp. People have given me compliments on my acting. And I enjoy doing both of those things, and I certainly enjoy the modeling. But what am I doing with that? Even though it brings me such joy, well, why didn't you pursue it? Not to the point that I could rely on any of those three activities.
Right.
To pay the rent. I mean, that'd be great, but let's you know.
But I mean, is the actualization better? Does that come from being paid and living off of it, or just the doing of it?
The doing of it.
Oh.
I would never expect to become a true professional in any of those three avocations. If it happened, it would be great. I mean, there's plenty of people who I guarantee you are insanely talented actors, and they'll be waiting tables in Los Angeles for the rest of their life through no fault of their own. It's just the breaks, the things didn't roll that way.
Yep.
For me, it's a trip to get paid for something in addition to doing something I like, but it's not the primary motivator. Yeah, if it helps pay a bill at the end of the month, that's great, but it's not the primary driver. And I just realized, back when I was in my 20s and 30s, oh yeah, the future was so distant, there's plenty of time to squander, but now you start to realize...
First couple bites, how's everybody tasting so far?
Oh, it's delicious. Thank you very much.
Enjoy.
Delicious. One of the things that kind of hit home was I found out that a friend of a friend had passed away recently. He was in his, I want to say, early to mid-50s, so a little bit older than me, but not by much. I met him a couple times before, nice guy. Last time I saw him was probably 2005, 2006. But, if you mention his name, I knew who he was. I, remember what he looked like.
Yeah, this always makes you think.
Not what happened was, and apparently he's a very active guy physically. Well, one day he had a stroke, so he went to the hospital, and the doctors were trying to figure out, hey, you're only in your 50s, why are you having a stroke? So they dug around. I believe ended up being brain cancer, which has a very high mortality rate. My grandfather passed away from that, but well before I was born. So I just found out from a co-worker, and he's like, oh, so-and-so, yeah, hey, I don't know if you know, he passed away, over the weekend. That wasn't the main catalyst, but at the time it was like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
He was a fairly healthy guy otherwise.
Yeah.
He had a wife and kids.
Yeah, these things always make you think. So if you like doing these three things, modeling, new art modeling, acting, what was the other one? Writing.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like you would get more out of it if you took it up to the next level.
That's what I'm thinking, because, here's the thing. I guess this is where I was talking about, like, if you were to ask a younger me where he saw himself now, I would have said, oh, yeah, I would be married, maybe have kids, maybe not, but at least married.
Yeah.
House out in the suburbs. None of that happened. I'm not regretful of it. I just don't think it was for me. Having said that, though, I've got a lot of unobligated time that people with other life circumstances don't have. So what's stopping me? And the weird part is, I don't know if it's, I don't even want to say fear of failure. That's not the right thing, but not even fear of commit. There's something that gets me to the point almost where I get to the stadium, I start walking up to the track.
Yeah.
But I don't get on my marks, and I don't get on the start, and I don't get on the track. And I don't know why
That's fear of commitment.
I guess you're right.
Yeah. That's just classic. That's boring. Fear of commitment.
And I don't know why it is. All the acting I do, it's just homegrown and improvised, so I'm not going to get upset if I take acting lessons at an acting studio and somebody says, hey, I think you could be more convincing doing this, that, the other thing. Well, that's why I'm in the room, Same thing with creative writing. Hey, these are some good stories, but this is where you're struggling with. Well, that's why I'm paying you, to teach me to be a better person. I sat down with the head of, or I shouldn't say I sat down, I was on the phone at one point, and we talked about this during one of the previous podcasts with the person who's head of the DC Art Models Collective. Mm-hmm. She gave me all sorts of great suggestions about, hey, these are some ways you can start, getting more work again. And yeah, I accidentally had brain freeze and threw out the notebook with all her good advice, but there's nothing stopping me from reaching out and saying, hey, can we have another get-together and talk about it? I suppose, and maybe I'm overthinking this, maybe there would be something at the end of the day when all is said and done that outlasts me. Whether it's something written, whether it's a drawing or a portrait of me, whether it's, let's say, a recording of me from a play or something that I did. That's not the main reason, but again, I get all these this confluence of factors all at once.
Yeah, you're thinking about legacy.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not going to be a child that I'm aware of. But even then, that may have manifested itself after I found out that one particular person passed away. But from the more day-to-day things, it's I get home and it's I've got stuff to do. Classic thing. I've got tons of books on my bookshelf. I can never commit to reading them.
That is a fear of commitment.
Yeah, and it's not that. Or what would happen is, and part of that was, I would always have this thing where I would read half a book and I would get to a part where the story slowed down and I just pick up another book as opposed to finishing it. Now it seems like I can't even do that. And again, it's not like I have a whole lot of things that compete for my time.
And yet you'll finish making a mistake.
Yeah.
I'm not a psychologist, but that sounds like a fear of commitment. Because if you commit to something, you may be bad at it? Or what if it's not everything you hope it is?
Well, that's exactly it. If you commit to it, even if you don't succeed through, okay, either I don't have the aptitude, or, hey, I thought this thing was going to be really cool and interesting, and it's
Right.
really not,
And
so
it's
I'm going to
not.
just back out, but at least I
And
tried
then what's
it.
left?
Right.
And what's left then?
Maybe
Right.
that's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fear, right?
What
Is
if I
that-
don't like this?
Yeah.
What if I'm
Because
not
right now
good?
you're like, oh, these are my 3 interests, right? And then you get into acting classes and you do some more plays, maybe even get into a play where you get paid. And then it doesn't give you joy. It's that need for more adrenaline all the time.
You know, that's a good way of putting it. That, and the fact that of these 3 avocations, I think I'm certainly good at them, but good in a very small pool. Opposed to like, okay, now now I go to take acting lessons, go to an acting school. Well, gee, I thought I was good, but holy cow, these guys and girls, they're just
Way
nailing it
better.
way out of the park. I can't even hold water compared to them.
Yeah, that's just regular old fear of commitment, fear of not being as good as you think you are. Yeah. And then what? And what now? That brings us back to and what now? Yeah.
Exactly.
You just have to do it. Just dive in and do it.
Well, that's exactly it, and I don't have to do everything at once. I mean, I'll be honest. I did a couple community theater productions back in 2009. I had modeled for about 2 years prior to that. I didn't even set out to act. What happened was a friend of mine, a former coworker, she said, who does have an acting background, she said, hey, they're having these this audition up in Bethesda. You want to just come after work with me just to keep you company? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Well, they were open, I guess, tryouts, for lack of a better word. And I thought, all right, you know what? I'll try out for a couple of these roles, and guess what? If I don't get any of the parts, well, I'm not an actor, so no skin off my back. Well, I ended up getting 2 parts. Both, incidentally, the leading lady was also my friend, so it was coincidental, and but it was something I enjoyed. And
Yeah.
I remember I was terrified
Yeah.
opening night.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
But I think much like the art modeling,
Yeah.
it was the adrenaline and the fact that I could rise to the occasion and I could do this
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it. I backed off the acting after that because at the time, money was a consideration. The acting, most of at that level, isn't paid, whereas the art modeling is. So, and which isn't to say that I couldn't do both at once, but if I have rehearsal several nights a week, and then somebody calls up and says, hey, I need a model next Friday. Well, it's rehearsal night, but, you know, I didn't want to have to come to that thing where,
Right.
I mean, I always honor my commitments, but at the same time, it was the opportunity cost. That I'm like, okay, I would rather forego the acting under the likelihood of, like, I will continue to pick up getting modeling gigs.
Right.
And I will get paid for those, and I can use those to pay off student loans. And
Yeah. So I posed this question to you just like yesterday. So you've had time to really have a think.
and you know, and I guess what really,
And look what that's unleashed.
yeah. Well, and it's funny because, like I said, when I got that email from you, I'm like, oh, geez, what the hell am I going to talk about with such short notice? And I don't know what happened. I think it was a confluence. It was a couple things. My mom went home yesterday, so I saw her back I went ahead, I distinctly remember, I took her downstairs so she could catch an Uber to the train station. I had to run a few errands directly from there. I came back and I could still smell her morning coffee in the apartment. And I don't know what it was. It's probably nothing, but it put me in somewhat of a sentimental mood. And the other thing was I made the mistake of checking my work email for the first time. Last night, after being out a week, there were a couple it's this crap again and that sort of thing. So it kind of had all sorts of emotions kind of going through me. And that's when I decided, well, wait a second. that I don't know how, but the topic that we're talking about came up, and I'm like, okay, let's go with that.
Yeah, people get very sentimental at this time of year. It's spun up. Society makes us feel very sentimental.
I love the steak sauce.
It's amazing, huh?
It's delicious.
They don't tell us what's in it. It's a secret.
Really?
Yeah.
It's good. And I normally don't like sauces on my steak, but this is delicious.
Oh, I love that. It's great.
I brought little muffs. They're called cats. It's a little wind muff that catches your in case you have very, like me, I tend to spit a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I tend to make a lot of popping sounds when I
Really?
talk, and so these little muffs that are called cats, you put it on the end of your microphone and it makes it better. It softens the sounds that people make.
I had no idea it was called
Ooh,
a
and
cat.
here's
Thank
the
you very
sass.
much.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I've always heard it referred to as a sock.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's more like a DJ radio
Yeah,
type
maybe.
thing.
I think that's...
Yeah, I remember something about it. It was in one of Howard Stern's books. He was complaining about that.
Oh, yeah, because does he still have a podcast?
I don't know. And the only reason I even remembered it was a sock was because he was complaining that, I guess he had the same microphone back when he was in New York for so long, that it had like years and years worth of people's coffee breath and cigarette breath, and he said it just absolutely reeked. I'm having the steak naked. I actually prefer it with the sauce.
Because this kind of meat is not... It's not like a fine cut.
Which is funny
Quite
because...
chewy.
Yes, it is.
Again, it's the thigh, which gets a lot of work out. In Colombia, it's called the picanha, and people go for it. They love it. Because they say it has more taste. And I'm like, well, I don't want taste. I want delicateness. I think this is enough for me because I want room for the apple pie.
I've developed a bit of a sweet tooth lately. I never had one for years.
No, me neither. Although,
And that chocolate
I've
cake does sound
always-
intriguing.
well, especially because he said it's the size of,
Kansas.
yeah. They, I was going to say of the continental U.S. Well, I think you just have to launch yourself at it, see what sticks.
Yeah. And I think now's the time to do it because, just as I said, the modeling is slowed down, and it doesn't look like it's going to pick up exponentially anytime soon. So the point is, I do have some more free time for other things. To the point
But is there
where
any theater going on right now?
I don't know, because the other thing is there's got to be like local community theater in Arlington. There absolutely has to be.
But I don't know that they have the...
Let alone DC.
Yeah, the professionals are back at it. But I'm not sure that the amateur people have time and money.
But, when COVID just threw a monkey wrench.
Yeah.
I mean, into everything, but definitely in terms of the
Right,
creative
because I know that,
community.
the amateurs got back to it. But I don't know about the AmPro or... I always think AmPro, I always think of ballroom dancing. Because they'll have those competitions where there's an amateur and a pro. So that leaves the writing. The writing is the easiest and yet the hardest.
That's exactly it, because it's something that can easily... The writing can be done at home. It does not have to be in a studio. It does not have to be on stage. The most commitment it's going to have is, at some point, you're going to have to get together with other people to, like you said, either workshop things or whatever. That could be virtual, although I prefer in person. But again, the point being is, depending on what I'm looking for.
The nice thing about virtual is it can be from anywhere in the world. And you can be super comfortable.
I just find myself more and more these days preferring things in person, especially in terms of human interaction, certain nonverbal cues that are a little bit more easier to perceive. At least I think so.
Oh, yeah?
Live versus...
To our
through a
listeners, I'm not making any rude facial expressions. Not making any nonverbal whatever. Cutting my thigh meat, my picanha in this gravy.
Well-
Let's see her waiter. I'm going to grab another beer.
You could also do a meetup.
Do a what?
A meetup. Do they have meetups anymore?
Oh, yes.
Like free?
Oh,
I don't know what his name is. Can you tell us what his name was?
I don't remember. Oh, could I get another Pilsner, please? Thank
He's
you.
thirsty.
I'm a thirsty boy and I love Pilsners.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you could just. I don't know where the people do it now, where they post, "Hey, I'm going to meet at this place. If you have a whatever and want to come and discuss it."
I had a friend. In fact, I got to do some acting for him. He just went through. It's called CERT, C-E-R-T. It's like I don't know if you're familiar with it, and certainly our listeners may not be. It's like a more updated version of the old civil defense from like the 50s and the 60s. That in case there's ever a natural disaster, floods, earthquakes, whatever.
Oh, okay.
They're a force multiplier for the actual like first responders. They can at least help triage and look for survivors and things like that. So
I was going to say, you mean when the aliens invade again?
yeah, when
They'll be up there with their little pointed shoulder pads, ready to catch the aliens.
yeah.
They've been trained how to identify an alien versus a human.
He said, "Hey, I know you've done acting before and you've done role plays before." Mm-hmm. He's like, "We're having our graduation exercise, and we've all been asked to bring a volunteer to basically
Play a
role
dead
play
person?
or different casualties."
Okay.
Which is a funny story behind.
You should go and play an alien.
I played a drunk person.
Oh.
What they did was, and they didn't give you like any sort of, they pulled the volunteers aside, and what they did was they said, okay, who wants to have a puncture wound, who wants to have a broken leg, and then they give you a little card that says, hey, these are the kind of the behavior you need to exhibit. So I was like, blah, blah, whatever, and it's like, who wants to play a drunk? And I'm like, okay, that's the actual kind of acting. I'll go ahead and try doing that. So we did that for a couple hours over at the Arlington County Fire Academy. Mm-hmm. So we got back inside, and I didn't think I was doing anything special. And the woman who was, I guess, one of the ran the program, and she starts going through the debrief, and then she turns to me and said, "You were one of the best drunk role players we've ever had," or something along those lines.
Are you drunk? Here, breathe into this.
Yeah, breathe into this. We just need to go ahead and make for certain.
Yeah.
Make certain. Again, nothing special, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, this is, and I got compliments from other people. I'm like, I wasn't trying to showboat. I wasn't. I was like, okay,
No. It's just nice to know that you did a good job and
Exactly.
and that you have that. Hey, I remember the only compliment I've ever gotten from acting, and it was in high school, I think, and I still remember it. It means a lot. The compliments mean a lot.
They do. It's an intangible.
But I think you should get back into the writing. That's the easiest thing to just throw yourself into. Well, and that is why I started Yelping. I got into Yelping because I read your review about the clear cutting of the forest.
And it's funny, we met maybe, about 100 yards that away?
Yeah, exactly. At the grocery store. But I read that and I just thought, oh my God, this is brilliant. Because it was so funny.
And
You should write funny stuff. I know that's like, be funny. And then go, be funny.
Yeah, now, be funny.
Do it, make me laugh. That's not fair. But wow, it was funny. And then a lot of, I read most of your Yelp reviews at that time. But the thing that because I asked you why.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you.
Okay. It wasn't so much. Thanks. It wasn't so much that was a very funny review about getting a Brazilian wax. This podcast is going to be, I promise, not just about scrotums all the time. It's like last night.
All scrot all the time.
It's all about nudity and scrotums and balls.
It's about culture, we swear.
Yeah, it is. It's very cultural. But I asked you why you were doing it, and I think because you said it was a writing exercise. And I was having one of those moments. One of my childhood dreams was to be a published
Oh, thank you
author.
very much.
And then here I was, all grown up, and not just grown up, but like way, like in middle age, or heading that way. And I still hadn't published anything, and I wasn't the next great American writer, and let alone, and I hadn't even written anything. And then, and I know writers, and they're like, you just have to do it. It's like any craft. Long before Outliers. Have you read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
I've heard of Malcolm Gladwell, but I haven't.
They're just such good stories. They're really good stories. And, there's the story he tells. My point is, it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. So if you never start,
Right, you're never
you're
gonna.
not going to get to 10,000. You got to get to, you got to get to 1,000 first. And then you only have 10 more of that, and then you'll get to 10,000. And he explained that in his story about Canadian hockey. Well, of course, it is Canadian.
Right.
About hockey, ice hockey.
Right.
Which is maybe not something that would interest me all that much, but it was a great article. And he really explained it, and I don't know that the point of his article was so much about the 10,000 hours, but what I do remember about that particular article was that if you have a kid who was born January 1st, when they're 2 years old, and they're putting them on little skates and making them hit a puck, believe me, that was a puck with a P. And that kid is competing against a kid who is born 364 days later. They're a year apart in mental, physical ability. That's a huge difference. And so he looked at all of Wayne Gretzky, all the greats. Mm-hmm. They're all born like January 1st.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Because they are a whole year ahead of all those other kids. They're half a year ahead of the kids born in the summer, or whatever you call it, right in July. Mm-hmm. They're a year ahead of the kids born in November, December. And so when they're from the beginning, when these kids are running around, they can't walk yet, but they're on their ice skates at 2, the one who is basically 3 is going to be much bigger and more coordinated than the one who's only 2. And that self-perpetuates then. Because then the next year, they're already they've been selected.
Right.
This kid needs to be put in the special in the varsity or whatever it's called. And so by the time that they are 10, they're 4 years apart in ability. Even though they only started out a year apart.
Right.
So anyway, something like that. And I thought, wow, it was so well put. I was like, this is brilliant. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And so his solution, actually, not that the Canadians asked him.
Right.
But he had a solution in terms of equity. He said they should do it quarterly. They should select out of the quarter. Kids born January, March, the best of those.
Right.
Kids born, so that they have a chance.
Right.
Because how can you compete with someone who's double your age?
Yeah, exactly.
When you're 2 or 1, right? So yeah, it was really good. I highly recommend that book.
Ooh.
I do not get paid by Malcolm Gladwell. But it was that article, and then the article about why all airlines use English as their language.
As I mentioned at the beginning, I wasn't sure I was going to post this chat I had with Jason about his midlife crisis. But this is actually what came out when I asked him to tell me a story. This was the story that he wanted to tell me this time. He wanted to work out his midlife crisis. And that, of course, is a story that's worthy as well. So I hope you listen next time when we talk and laugh more about midlife crises, when we talk about the craft of writing and the craft of storytelling. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now.